As I was saying in the last video, we love this kind of problem because when they give you m, the slope, you plug it in for m, and when they give you the y-intercept, which I know it is because x is 0, you plug it in for b and you're done. Boom, no work. So I wrote the equation right here, so we had it as a guide. And we plug 5 in for m, so y equals 5x. And remember, this is our b because it's the y-intercept. And how do I know that? Because x is 0. Now, if x wasn't 0, you cannot do this shortcut. Only time you can when x is 0, because that makes it the y-intercept. Piece of cake. Love it. Of course, I could just fill up a whole test with those, right? Not, but you will have one for sure, maybe two. So y, excuse me, y equals m is negative 2x plus our b is 3 again. So same kind of problem, just this time we had a negative slope. Here our slope is 0. And our y-intercept's negative 1, so we would write y equals, in place of m, put 0x. And instead of writing plus negative 1, it's better to write just minus 1. And what is 0 times any number? 0. So generally we don't write this. We write it like this. And then you go, oh, this is a special case. It only has a y. Yes, it is a special case. All horizontal lines have a slope of 0. But this is the best way to write it because this is really not simplified. I mean, it's okay. I wouldn't count it wrong, but it's not simplified because 0 times x is 0. 0 minus 1, negative 1. So this is the simplified form. Then we have a negative slope and a negative b, which really doesn't change anything. So put negative 3 in for m, so negative 3x. And instead of writing plus negative 2, again, just write negative 2. Teachers frown on the double signs, so do computers. So it's just best to write the sign there. Okay, so go ahead and do I and j real fast, and then we can check those together. Okay, so I has a slope of 3/4, so in place of m, I write 3/4. I'm just going to put my equation here because I like to see it. And then we write our x, and then in place of b is 2. Love these. So easy, no work. And then we have a negative fractional slope, which again doesn't affect the problem. So negative 1/2 x for the slope, and then plus 4. So that's it for the easy ones. So if they give you the slope and y-intercept, you can go right to the answer. And remember, you'll know if it's a y-intercept by looking to see if x is 0. So now, what do we do if, I guess the next page is the answer key. So if you want to do any other one of those, I don't think you probably need to. They're pretty simple, but you know you better than I do. So now we're going to take a look at what if they give us the slope and a point just like they did, but now the point is not the y-intercept. So this is what we learned in our last lesson, lesson 4. Remember the big, long, how many pages was that? Oh my gosh, I feel like it was like 18. Oh, those were endless. So that's what we learned in these is when you're given the slope and a point that's not a y-intercept, then we use point slope form. So that was what we introduced in Module 4 was point slope form. And just as a reminder, I know you guys probably don't need it, but do you remember how I told you where point slope form comes from? here's the slope formula. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Because a lot of students will tell me, oh, I just forgot that formula. It's a hard one. Well, everybody knows this. We've been doing this for 10 weeks. So everybody knows this. So if you know this, you should be able to get there. So in Module 5, we learned how to deal with fractions. We learned to set the cross products equal. So 1 times anything is just that anything. Y2 minus y1 equals. And then this cross product is m parentheses x2 minus x1. Take those little subs off, and boom, there's your point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So if you ever freeze on a test and forget, just go back to something you know. That's what I love, and I think that's how I can tell when students are going to be good math students, if they can derive something. They don't just memorize a bunch of formulas. They're able to derive something if they need to. So sometimes Alex uses this form. I'm not going to use it because this is what your upper level classes will use, but I just want you to know that that is an okay form if you like. So when we're given a slope and a point that's not the y-intercept, we learned that you plug the point in for x1 and y1, and you plug the slope in for m. So I see a slope and I see a point that is not the y-intercept, so I know I can't go straight to my answer. So what I do is I write my point slope form, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, and don't ever be afraid to write that. The more you write it, the more it will be in your brain. So this is my x1, this is my y1, there's my m. So y minus 13 equals m5 times x minus 2. And then do you remember what we did on Monday's lesson? Distributed and left the answer in y equals mx plus b form. So first we have to distribute before we can do anything with that 13. So this would be 5x minus 10. And then we add 13, and usually unless told otherwise, we leave all of our answers in y equals mx plus b form, which is called slope-intercept form. So my answer is y equals 5x, 13 minus 10 is plus 3. Done! So not quite as easy as the ones previous, but as long as you remember the formula, it's really just a plug and chug. So multiply, bring the other number over by doing the opposite, done. So I would say you should turn off your video now and try D on your own, and then come back and we'll check that together. So again, I notice that I have a slope and a point, but that point is not the y-intercept, so that means I can't go straight to the answer. So that tells me to write point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. There's my m, there's my x1, there's my y1. So y minus 5 equals -2, and here's where you need to be careful. X minus -1. So there's going to be a double negative there. So there's a minus from the formula, and then my x1's negative. And remember, when we were doing these on Monday, we said make sure and make it a big plus first before you do any distributing, any moving from side to side. Make it a big plus. And now we have to distribute. So both elements inside parentheses are now positive. So it's x plus 1. And some students feel more comfortable rewriting it just so they don't have that big plus sign there. They just said it just like gets them nervous, makes them miss signs. So if you want to rewrite it, make it look simpler, go for it. So that will be y minus 5 equals negative 2x and negative 2. To get y alone so that it'll be in y equals mx plus b form, we need to add 5. And remember, be sure and put it underneath its like term. So we get y equals negative 2x. 5 minus 2 is positive 3. So I'm sure you guys remember most of this from Monday, right? And again, yes, I'm skipping some, but guess what? Look on page 15, and what do you see? The answer key. So there is an answer key, so you can check those. And then we have another set after that. Did I say 15? Yeah, it's not on page 15. The answer key's on page 12, sorry. 12 of 15. So there we go. So page 12 is where the answer key is if you want to do extra of these. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to page 11. So I just circled 3 of these because, like I said, we did quite a few of them in Monday's lesson. So I don't want to like burn you out here. Maybe you already are burnt out. I know a lot of my students are. And so are the teachers, believe me. So here we have slope of 0 and we have a point, but that point is not my y-intercept, so I can't go straight to the answer. So this tells me because this x is not 0, it's not the y-intercept, so I need to do point slope form. So we're going to do E, I, and J on this page, just FYI. So E, I, and J. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So I picked this one because there's a lot of negatives in it. I thought we needed to practice. So y minus negative 1 equals m times x minus negative 4. So there's a minus in the problem, and we're subtracting a negative. Oh, Kim, jeepers, sorry, I'm losing it. I was thinking of something I want to tell you at the end of the videos, and my mind started straying. So y minus from the formula, and we're subtracting negative 1. In place of the m is the 0, and then x minus negative 4. So again, we got a couple double negatives we want to take care of first. And it is a pretty ugly problem. I think it's a really good idea to rewrite it just to clean it up so you don't make any sign errors. So this is our new pretty problem. So now it's y plus 1 equals 0 times x plus 4. Distribute. And we get y plus 1 equals 0x plus 0, right? So 0 times x, 0x, or really 0. 0 times 4 is 0. So 0 times anything is 0. So subtract your 1. Subtract your 1, put it underneath its like term. And remember how I said 0 times x is 0, so we don't really need to write it. So our answer is going to be y equals 0 minus 1, negative 1. So what kind of line is that only goes through the y-axis? If it only goes through the y, it's horizontal. So does that make sense why the slope is 0? 0. Fun. So horizontal line, and we didn't even know it. Well, actually, we should have known it at the beginning because the slope was 0. That's the only kind of line with slope of 0. So it's not surprising that it came out in that form, saying that it only goes through the y-axis, which all horizontal lines do. So we'll do the last 2 on this page on the next video.